They played heroes, but lived like villains. These 60s stars had dark sides fans never saw. One actor forced himself on a teenage actress without warning. Another beat his wife and blamed it on a car crash. A famous comedian locked women in his dressing room and exposed himself. Their talent got them fame, but their behavior left scars. Today, we see behind the mask. The stars who lit up screens were actually the darkest people on set. Robert Blake. Robert Blake started as a sweet-faced little boy in the Our Gang comedies, performing under the name Mickey Gubitosi. But behind the scenes, his life was a nightmare. Blake later said his parents abused him horribly. He ran away from home when he was just 14. That pain stayed with him forever. Blake somehow managed to keep acting. He served in the army, came back, and picked up small parts in movies. Then he stunned everyone with his role in Cold Blood, playing a real-life killer. He looked like the man he played. He acted like him, too. Critics loved him, but something in Blake seemed a little too close to the darkness. In the 1970s, Blake finally became a household name with the TV show Beretta. He played a street-smart cop with a pet cockatoo and a lot of tough talk. But behind the scenes, Blake was not easy to work with. He was angry. He was bitter about his childhood. He fought with people on set. He used drugs. Eventually, he walked away from everything and disappeared for years. When Blake came back into the public eye, it wasn't for his work. It was for something much worse. In 2001, his wife Bonnie Lee Backley was found shot dead in his car outside a restaurant in Los Angeles. Blake claimed he had gone back inside to get a gun he forgot. When he returned, she had been shot in the head. Police soon found a gun in a trash bin not far from the crime scene. It matched the bullets used to kill Backley, but they couldn't prove Blake had pulled the trigger. The case became a circus. Two stuntmen came forward, claiming Blake had tried to hire them to kill his wife. One said Blake offered him $10,000. The other said Blake had made a similar offer. Both refused. At trial, prosecutors couldn't link Blake directly to the shooting. There was no gunpowder on his hands. There was no witness who saw him pull the trigger. After a long and dramatic trial, Blake was acquitted. But like O.J. Simpson, he wasn't off the hook completely. In a civil trial, Blake was found responsible for Backley's death and was ordered to pay $30 million to her family. Blake's life after that was a wreck. He declared bankruptcy. He never acted again. His final movie role was in David Lynch's Lost Highway, where he played a creepy character called the Mystery Man, a fitting end to his career. Robert Blake died in 2023 at the age of 89, leaving behind a story that many believe ended with murder, even if the courts never officially said so. Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis was known as the King of Comedy. For decades, people laughed at his wild antics and praised him for his charity work, especially the muscular dystrophy telethons. On the outside, he looked like a legend, a man who gave so much and made people happy. But behind the jokes and big smile, there was a much darker story waiting to be told. In 2022, years after Lewis passed away, a documentary and a shocking article exposed another side of him. Several women who had worked with Lewis spoke up, and their stories were heartbreaking. They said he used his fame and power to hurt women, not help them. One of them was Karen Sharp. She played his love interest in The Disorderly Orderly. What should have been a simple costume fitting turned into a nightmare. She said Lewis kicked everyone out of the room, grabbed her, and tried to force himself on her. When she said no, he was furious. After that, he told the film crew to ignore her. She was stuck on the movie, trapped by her contract, working day after day with a man who acted like she didn't even exist, unless the cameras were rolling. Another actress, Hope Holiday, told an even more horrifying story. She worked with Lewis on The Ladies' Man. On her very first day, he invited her to his dressing room. Once she walked in, he pressed a button that locked the door. Then he started talking about sex. Before she could react, he exposed himself and began touching himself right in front of her. She sat there frozen, terrified, not knowing what to do. The next day, she confronted him and slapped him. But Lewis was the star and director, and the production came to a halt. He never spoke to her again. She thought about reporting him, but decided not to, scared of what it could do to her career. After all, Lewis was a giant at Paramount Studios. Other women said working with Lewis was miserable too. Jill St. John said her time with him was extremely unhappy. Connie Stevens had heard stories before she even met him. She later said she was the only actress who showed up to his funeral, which spoke volumes about how other women in Hollywood felt about him. The darkness didn't stop at work. Lewis's own family knew a side of him the public never saw. Behind closed doors, he was cruel to his wife and children. His sons later described a life full of fear, saying their father beat them, humiliated them, and made their home a nightmare. They called him a bully, and even said he hated his own children. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando changed acting forever. When he appeared on screen, he didn't feel like he was acting. He felt real. Movies like A Streetcar Named Desire and On the Waterfront made him a legend. But behind all that fame was a man who caused a lot of pain. He wasn't just difficult, he could be cruel. And sometimes the people who worked with him never forgot the damage he left behind. One of the worst stories came from the movie Last Tango in Paris. Brando was 48 years old. His co-star, Maria Schneider, was only 19. During filming, something happened that was not in the script. It was the famous butter scene, and it was Brando's idea. Maria wasn't warned about it. She only found out right before they shot it. She said later, "I was so angry, but it was too late. They filmed it anyway." Maria said she felt humiliated, and she even said she felt a little raped. Not just by Brando, but by the director, Bernardo Bertolucci, too. Brando didn't seem to care. When Maria was upset, he just brushed it off. He told her, "Don't worry, it's just a movie." But for her, it wasn't. She cried real tears during that scene, and after the cameras stopped, Brando didn't comfort her. He didn't even apologize. Later, Bertolucci admitted they had planned not to tell her the full details because they wanted a real reaction. They didn't want her acting. They wanted her fear and humiliation to be real. And that's exactly what they got. The damage didn't end when filming did. Maria struggled for the rest of her life. Drugs, depression, even suicide attempts haunted her. Meanwhile, Brando got another Oscar nomination and millions of dollars. Maria was left with scars she could never fully heal. She died in 2011, but the pain from that movie never really left her. And this wasn't a one-time thing with Brando. Trouble seemed to follow him wherever he went. In 1962, while filming Mutiny on the Bounty in Tahiti, Brando's behavior nearly destroyed the entire production. He caused delay after delay, fought with the crew, and pushed costs so high that MGM almost went bankrupt. Newspapers even ran stories calling it a disaster. One director said giving Brando control of a movie was like handing a spoiled child the keys to a bank vault. By the 1960s, Brando didn't even seem to like acting anymore. He once said he only acted for money. That bitterness showed. He took roles he didn't care about. His weight went up and down. His performances started to lose their magic. People said he wasn't even trying. Off camera, his life grew stranger. He became paranoid. He recorded everything, his phone calls, his visitors, even his own thoughts. He talked about putting up cameras around his house because he didn't trust anyone. In one recording, he worried about people sneaking up to his gate at night. Brando's own words showed how lost he felt. He once said he hated being famous because people looked at him like he was some animal in a zoo. He felt trapped, stared at, never treated like a real person. That loneliness made him even harder to deal with. He pushed people away, friends, family, co-stars, until he was surrounded by walls of his own making. Richard Burton. Richard Burton came from a small town in Wales. He dreamed of more and, through sheer talent, became one of Hollywood's most powerful actors. On screen, he had a voice that filled theaters and performances that earned him 7 Oscar nominations. But away from the cameras, his life was full of pain, mistakes, and broken hearts. His success couldn't hide the troubles he carried inside. The problems started early. Burton had his first drink at just 11 years old. It wasn't a surprise. His father was a heavy drinker too, often spending days drunk, even after being hurt in a mining accident. Burton grew up watching this and, sadly, followed the same path. As an adult, he bragged about drinking huge amounts of alcohol, even while working. His health and relationships paid the price. In later years, when he spoke about his drinking on television, the damage was already done. Then came Elizabeth Taylor. Their love story wasn't sweet. It was a storm. They met on the set of Cleopatra, both already married to other people. Their affair shocked the world. Newspapers followed every move they made. Even the Vatican spoke out against them. Burton didn't care. He once bragged loudly on set about sleeping with Taylor. Their passion was wild, and so were their fights. When their partners finally left them, Burton and Taylor married. But the marriage was a battlefield too. Fights often turned violent. One terrible argument left Taylor with bruises and a broken nose. Though they blamed a car accident, those close to them knew the truth. They divorced, remarried, and divorced again. It was a cycle they couldn't break. They acted together in many films, playing couples who fought and hurt each other. The lines between acting and real life blurred, and it wore them down. Even after parting ways for good, the damage stayed. Burton's problems didn't stop with Taylor. He had affairs with countless women, by some accounts over 2,000. He didn't hide it. Even while married, he continued chasing other women. He had an affair with actress Natalie Delone, and once even hinted that he had explored relationships with men, causing more gossip to swirl around him. Burton's life was never simple, never quiet, and never free from scandal. Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen, known as the King of Cool, had a different kind of darkness. To the world, he was the tough hero of The Great Escape and Bullet. But inside his own home, he was cruel and dangerous. His first wife, Neely Adams, lived through it all. She later told the world how the man everyone admired had made her life a nightmare. McQueen cheated on her constantly, but couldn't stand the thought of her being unfaithful. When he suspected she had been, he forced her to take drugs and confess. Then he beat her, again and again, demanding every ugly detail. Once, he even pointed a loaded gun at her head, threatening to kill her if she didn't tell him more. The fear she lived with was real and constant. The abuse didn't end there. McQueen pushed her to use cocaine. When she became pregnant, he refused to believe it was his child. Terrified and alone, Adams had an abortion, convinced the baby wouldn't survive the violence anyway. After she left him, McQueen married actress Ali McGraw, but the pattern repeated. He was controlling, jealous, and cruel. He had countless affairs while accusing her of the same. She later said he had a deep anger inside him, mixed with a strange kind of sadness. Their marriage fell apart like the one before it, and McQueen's demons never truly left him, even when his life ended early at just 50 years old.